O Mother Nui, stretch high above this valley. Your starry body is our glory. Then see the hawk of yonder Rahur quit, his fiery splendor, oh so mighty. He brings a light for all our weary souls. He makes the broken spirit whole.
So if you break a bone, an x-ray, it clearly shows the fracture. But what if your chronic fatigue is actually like a jagged tear in your bioenergetic immune system? Welcome to today's deep dive, where we're exploring the human aura not as some mystical concept, but as an actual anatomical structure.
Right, a completely tangible system that can break, leak, and actually require clinical repair.
Exactly. Okay, so let's unpack this. Because the sources treat the aura as an anatomical shield.
Yeah, it regulates what comes in and goes out. And when it takes damage, it suffers structural failures. Mostly, we're talking about auric holes and auric rips.
I really like the analogy of a spacesuit here. Like, picture a highly sensitive electromagnetic spacesuit.
That is a great way to visualize it, actually.
Right, so a hole forms when the material itself degrades. The sources say this acts like a vacuum void on the outer shell, usually from chronic dissociation or chemical toxicity. Heavy smoking was one example.
The bioenergetic mechanism there is super fascinating because chemical toxins actively alter the frequency of the auric membrane.
Wait, really? They actually change the frequency?
They do. They cause that energetic material to lose its cohesive tension. And eventually, a void simply opens up.
Oh, wow. So the material just degrades from chemical wear and tear, which means rips, then, must be from kinetic impact.
Precisely. A rip is from acute, sudden trauma. It's an overwhelming force that physically fractures the field.
Leaving a jagged tear that exposes you to the vacuum of space? Sticking with the spacesuit idea.
Yeah, and both of those structural breaches leak your vital life force outward. But, a compromised spacesuit also means internal pressure isn't being regulated either.
Because if cognitive and emotional energies aren't expressed, they don't just vanish.
Right, they stagnate inside the suit. It starts as ungrounded debris.
Which gives you that, mentally scattered feeling.
Exactly. And if you don't clear it, it condenses into muddy spots. Eventually, it becomes this thick, oil-like sludge that causes heavy chronic fatigue. The clinical texts tie this directly to the throat chakra, the Vishuddha.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. What if you're just naturally introverted? Does being quiet mean you're doomed to have a sludgy aura?
I'm really glad you brought that up. No, introversion is just a natural baseline. The energy flows perfectly fine there.
Oh, okay. So it's about the intention behind the silence.
Yes, sludge forms from the fearful suppression of emotion.
Yes.
It's the physiological difference between comfortably choosing not to speak and a terrifying subconscious pressure where you feel you cannot express who you are.
That makes total sense. So if your suit is already torn open by a trauma rip and internally weighed down by sludge, you're going to be highly vulnerable to what gets in from the outside.
Highly vulnerable, and that perfectly explains negative attachment cords.
Right. The sources describe these as literal parasitic energetic tethers.
Yeah, they bridge two people's auras, usually feeding on chronic fear or guilt, which is the exact inverse of a healthy spiritual tie.
Which will be symbiotic, right? The negative cord sounds like having a hidden bidirectional wire siphoning your phone battery straight to a toxic ex.
Right. That is incredibly accurate. Which raises an important question: how do we fix this?
Right. The actual clinical interventions.
The protocols here are highly precise. Take the Brennan restructuring. Practitioners don't just wave their hands. They manipulate bioelectrical fields to literally seal the seventh layer of the aura.
So they're weaving torn energetic fibers back together to form like a protective eggshell.
Exactly. And for severing those parasitic cords, the texts mention using visualized scissors.
Visualized scissors. I mean, that sounds purely imaginary.
It does sound that way, but in this framework, focused biocognitive intention directs actual bioelectrical energy. You are literally slicing through the tether.
Oh, wow. And what are the internal sludge?
For that, practitioners often use somatic agents, like calcium bentonite clay. The negative ionic charge of the clay physically draws out dense, positively charged toxins.
Right. Straight from the compromised energetic field.
Exactly. And these aren't fringe concepts anymore. Hospitals in Hartford, Wisconsin actively use Reiki and energetic therapies alongside allopathic medicine to stabilize patients.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this right now? Well, your chronic brain fog might not be a lack of sleep.
No, it could be a contracted aura, like shrunk down to less than 2 or 3 feet. Or unresolved trauma rips, leaking your vitality.
Which means energetic hygiene is as physiologically vital as washing your hands.
Absolutely. You treat a physical wound immediately, right? An energetic wound requires that exact same urgency.
Especially since our auras are constantly interacting with morphological fields. We are constantly brushing up against everyone else's electromagnetic spacesuits out in the world.
We really are.
Which leaves you with this to consider today. What energetic residue are you unconsciously absorbing from the strangers you pass on the street?